Okay, welcome back to the Never Iron Anything Comics Review podcast. On this week's podcast, we have a new guest, and we tackle some action, some soap, and possibly some controversy. Let's welcome my companion for this evening. That sounds nice. Completing my royal flush of That Comic Smell presenters is the man who escaped sunny Spain, in fact Menorca, he was just telling me, to live in windy Dundee, which is particularly windy at the moment. It's only Nando Pons. How you doing, man? You right?
I'm all right, Tony. How are you?
Yeah, good, yeah. We were a bit worried it wouldn't happen, wasn't it? Because you got, is it Babette? Is it?
Yeah, Stone Babette. The Stone Babette, yes.
That's very posh
and I
name.
Actually, yes, very posh. I'm actually living in Carnoustie, so it's farther north than Dundee. So I'm even closer to the storm. And
oh, mate.
So yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on in these times of trouble. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
I was speaking to your pal Tom earlier, and he sent me a video of the dogs down by the sea or down by the river, and fucking hell, bloody hell, looked very lively. Yeah. So,
yes.
So for those that don't know, you're one of the 4 hosts of That Comic Smell. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
How long have you been going for, dude? It's a good maybe 4 or 5 years now, if not more. Is it?
I think it's about 5 years that's been going on now.
Yeah,
and still going strong.
Yeah. We've had everyone else on the show, including Mike, and then I actually came up. First time we met, actually, wasn't it? When I came up to Tom's house. God, it's about 3 or 4 months ago now, isn't it? And we did
that's right. Yeah, and that's the first time we met.
Yeah, that's good fun, man. I really enjoyed that. It's really nice because obviously I've met Dave before, I'd met Tom before, but it's nice meeting all the guys at once. Yeah,
it was nice to have you there, Tony, as well.
Okay.
Definitely.
And you've just recorded one as we speak, haven't you? I think a couple of days ago.
Yeah, just on Monday, actually. Yeah.
Are you not able to spill what it's about yet? I suppose the thing is with Tom is he hasn't been in the can for a while, doesn't he?
Yes, that's the thing. So he comes in the can for a wee while and then he'll release them. So I'll say the title or something related to the title, which is In the Shops.
Okay. So it's about pornographic magazines. Good to know. The
comics that you can buy in the shops.
In the shops, excellent. Yeah.
Yes.
And I happen to know what Mike's choice is because he texted me as he was buying it. So.
Well, there you are.
It's great to have you on, mate. It's great. The first guest from Menorca, and I think the first guest from Spain, I'm going to say. So that's good. So we're going to get a little bit into reading habits and how you got access to some of the comics we're going to, especially the comic we're going to talk about. But did you want to let the listeners know what you've chosen to come on and have a chat about?
We're going to talk about Uncanny X-Men 183.
Yeah.
The title of the story is He'll Never Make Me Cry.
Yeah. Which is the part with a bit of controversy, isn't it? I'm going to say.
Yes. Yes, although I'll add a note to that.
Yeah.
From when I read it originally, when I was about 10 or 11 or something like that.
Okay.
Or however old I was, and then I've reread it recently, and then you can. There's something there. Yeah.
I didn't realise when I read it the first time. I think there's an age difference. Let's not spoil what we're going to talk about in a minute. But okay, so it's X-Men 183. He'll Never Make Me Cry, as you kindly said. It's written by Chris Claremont. Artist is John Romita, then known as John Romita Jr. Inks by Dan Green. Colours by Glynis Wein. Letters by Tom Orzechowski. Editors was at the double team of Ann Nocenti and Louise Simonson, aka Louise Jones. Cover date July 1984. Release date April 1984. 22 pages, and the glory days of 60 cents full colour. Now it would be, I'm sure, $4.99. But there you go.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So did you want to give that, just before we go into how you got it and everything, did you want to give like a summary of what happens in it, dude?
Yeah. So this one in particular is just a single issue story in between many storylines going on. But essentially is the X-Men, they've just kind of returned from the world in Secret Wars, Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. And the story starts with Colossus breaking up with Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, and in a rather well-written sequence.
Yes, well written and well drawn as well. I thought the moments, the panels, the breaks, is all really well done there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happens in that episode, and obviously is how Kitty deals with that part, with her emotions. How Storm helps her. How initially we also see Lockheed and Ileana in the mansion, comforting her as well.
Yeah.
Then we also see what happens to Colossus in the story, and it's quite interesting as well.
Yeah.
Because Wolverine decided that he needs to take hands into this situation. And yeah, it's a very interesting way to do it. So Wolverine and Nightcrawler take Colossus out for a chat.
Yeah.
And they go to the bar for a chat. Yes.
Wolverine is. We'll talk a little bit about the character of Wolverine in a bit, but he's slightly different. He's not the fatherly figure we see now, is he? You know, in this.
No, although in this story, perhaps it's one of the first ones.
Yeah, that's a good
that
point.
You see that sort of fatherly figure essence of the character.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So in the bar, they come across Juggernaut, Kane Marco, don't they, at the bar, who's with a girl.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They meet this big guy, Kane Marco, in the cities, you know. And, Colossus has had one too many pints and ends up in a bar brawl with Juggernaut. And, as you do.
Yeah. And spoilers, he doesn't win. Which I remember finding quite shocking.
He doesn't win.
Yeah.
But it puts up a fight. And even Juggernaut says at the end of the fight, it made me proud.
Yeah, he's got a good right hook or something, he says, right cross.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and then essentially the bar is completely destroyed. But that's the whole that's the whole situation there pretty much. There's a couple of interludes in the story as well. Which are interesting. I don't know if you want to mention them or
please
not.
do, man. Yeah.
One of them is Rogue is in the danger room, and she's actually overdoing it. Really, she's just putting herself in danger there.
Yeah.
To the point that Storm has to intervene to save her life, and it's all because this is a storyline from previous issues where Rogue has had a mental breakdown between her own personality and Carol Danvers' personality that she absorbed when she absorbed all the powers in that Avengers Annual number 10, which is also written by Chris Claremont, if I remember correctly.
And I think it's worth a few quid now, isn't it? I think it's one of those sort of key issues now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Michael Golden doing the art.
Of course it is,
It's a really good one. So, Rogue is going through this phase that she's having this mix-up of memories and this mix-up of personalities, and she doesn't know how to cope with it, essentially. And Storm is there to help Rogue.
Yeah.
We also see a Storm offering the crying shoulder to Kitty.
Yes.
So later on. And then there's another interlude as well where we see Valerie Cooper, which is a government agent, to call it something official, and Mystic in disguise.
Yes.
And they're on their way to meet Forge.
Yeah.
And that leads to the story where Forge creates a detector, a mutant detector machine, based on Rome Space Knight technology.
Right.
And he also creates a gun that could neutralize the powers, perhaps for a period of time, although he hasn't tested yet, and he doesn't want to test it. But that's something that happens in another issue in the future.
Well, I mean, that's classic Claremont, isn't it? He famously has this A plot, B plot, C plot, doesn't he? Where he lays down things, some which happen, some which don't always happen, but he lays down people in the shadows as the C plot and stuff like that.
Lots of threads going here and there, and then as he goes along, when he finds convenient, he picks them up. Or maybe he forgets about it. Because that's another...
that's happened, isn't it? Yeah.
That happens as well. So. And I think that's pretty much. And the last page is the second appearance of Celine.
Yes.
I believe the first time she appears in a New Mutants comic, I want to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the appearance of Celine. And then that leads towards future issues of the X-Men, because she becomes one of the enemies of the X-Men.
Yeah, she becomes a major storyline in maybe, I'm going to say about 10 issues time, something like that. Yeah,
something like that, roughly. Yeah, something like that.
So, Nando, thanks for that. That was good. So that gives you a taste. It is an interlude issue, I'm going to say. There's a lot of soap in this one, isn't there? Which we're used to in the X-Men, I suppose.
Yeah, I think Chris Claremont, and I think that was one of the major characteristics of his writing, and perhaps one of the reasons why the X-Men were so successful for such a period of time.
Yeah.
He introduced this sort of soap opera, telenovela,
family
romance, family thing going on with the X-Men. And it's what you needed. You needed that sort of idea there.
Yeah.
And this issue in particular is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've famously heard about they go and play baseball or softball or stuff, don't they? You know, we have those issues in this sort of thing. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to you, to young Nando Pons and his introduction to comics. So, you grew up in Menorca as well, I'm guessing, did you?
That's right. Yes.
How was your access to comics because it's quite a small island, you were saying?
It's a tiny place. It's a tiny island. It's 30 miles long.
Wow. Okay.
My access to comics was actually really good.
Okay.
But it's because I'm from the generation that we were so lucky to go to the several news agents that you may have in the town.
Yeah.
And the racks were full of comics of all varieties, from local Spanish comics to some European imports to American imports. And when I'm talking about imports, are comics that have been translated and
I was wondering that.
Adapted to the format, to the magazine, etc. for Spain.
So what were the popular Spanish comics at the time?
For the Spanish comics at that time, Mortadelo and Filemón was probably the most popular one.
Okay.
Francisco Ibáñez, the creator, actually, he died sadly. That was end of July, beginning of August.
Oh, right, recently.
Summer.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. Just to give you an idea to the people who doesn't know about this, he is one of the artists that appears in Paco Roca.
Oh, right, yes.
The winter of the artist.
The revolution of the comics makers long before. We talked about that with Tom, actually. Tom came on and we talked about that because it's kind of like Image. It's like people forget history, don't they? Image think they created that revolution, but it happened decades before. It happened in
Spain. It happened in Spain in the 60s.
Yeah.
So Francisco Ibáñez is the young artist that just joins the publishers.
Ah, right, okay.
And this group is mentioned about him. He appears in the background a few times, and look at him, the young star, is doing well, and blah blah blah. That's him. Because we have to remember, in this particular graphic novel by Paco Roca, all these characters, the vast majority were real.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that at a different time because it's a book that is fascinating. There's a lot of details
it's an incredible book.
We are probably missing if you are not aware, because I can go into details of the covers of the magazines they are shown in the news agents in that book
within the story,
and are correct to the date.
Oh, wow, okay.
So Paco Roca did a lot of research to make sure that the comics and the covers that he was drawing were exactly contemporaneous to the date that he was given in the story.
That's great, man. If for those who want like a bit of a deeper, to be fair, not on the level that Nando knows, but Tom and I did a deep dive on that book about 3 years ago, I'm going to say. I'll put it in some of the socials, so you can go back and listen to that as well. Yeah, he's a great creator. Yeah,
it's a great one.
Yeah. So let's go back to the X-Men. So can you remember your first exposure to them?
The first exposure to X-Men was La Patrulla X issue 8. La Patrulla X was the magazine. That was the X-Men. That's how the X-Men are known in Spain.
Okay, what's the direct translation of that? Do you know? Is it
X-Patrol?
X-Patrol. Wow. Okay, that's very Rob Liefeld, isn't it?
Yes, very much.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that was my first exposure.
And what was the story? Can you remember?
That was Chris Claremont, Dave Cockrum, Joseph Rubinstein, and that was the story where the X-Men loved ones are kidnapped by Arcade, and Doctor Doom is there.
So this was the return of Cockrum. So this was post-Burn.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was post-Burn. That's when I started. Yeah. And that issue 8 of Patrulla X, that was my first one.
Wow.
And I bought that and I was 10, and that was me.
And then you had the Magneto issue after that, did you? Is that right?
Yeah, all of them. I bought every single one of them. That was me starting collecting superhero comics.
What a time to be an X-Men fan as well. Even though you missed Byrne, you got Cockrum, then you got Paul Smith, and then you got John Romita.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hell of a time. Yeah.
Yes.
It's gone downhill since, I'll be honest with you, Nando.
I haven't read them for a long time.
That was going to be my next question, actually. Are you still keeping up with them, or, you know?
I've read the House of X, Power of X, first book that contained, I think, is 12 issues. And I've read that, and that's fine, but I haven't read any more. To me, it's not the same. It's not the same connotations. It's not the same characters. They don't behave in the same way.
It's a bit more like the Legion of Superheroes now. There's so many characters in it. Back then, you had like 7 characters, didn't you? You know, you loved, and it wasn't just a different character every week and a different. Yeah, I know what you mean. So you carried on with X Patrol, as we're going to call it for the moment. In Menorca for a while, and and were you reading it in English as well? Were you an English speaker back then as well?
No, not at that time.
Right.
At that time, I mean, there in Menorca, there was no comic book shop, and even when I left, when I was 26, there wasn't anything like that. So the only comics you could be able to buy were the ones you could get in the newsagents. Okay. And that was, as I say, I was very lucky at that time because there were lots of newsagents, and all of them were carrying lots of comics. And although the X-Men in particular was a difficult one to get because everyone used to buy it and it used to run out very, very quickly, there was that sort of sense of adventure, going every week to the different newsagents and trying to find out that issue here, that issue there, that sort of thing. But the X-Men that was my first one that I follow and read. And then other things came. I was very lucky at that time. Spain was publishing the Iron Man by Bob Layton and Michelini, and at the same time they were doing Simonson's Thor.
Wow. Okay.
Fantastic Four,
would be Byrne around that
Alpha
time,
Flight by John Byrne. So all of these were at the same time in the newsagents, and because the Spanish editions were not all chronologically at the same line as the Americans, the X-Men in particular were quite behind compared to the rest. So but anyway,
we had the same here with I don't know if you've ever seen it since, but we had the same with Marvel UK here. So when people say to me, "When did you start reading the X-Men?" my answer is, well, when they started. I was reading the original team, but I wasn't reading them in the early mid '60s. I was reading them when they were reprinted in Marvel UK here.
Exactly. So the same.
Yeah. Did you go back and read some of the Byrne stuff as well, or?
Not for this. I've reread it, but that was, I think, about a year ago or so.
Oh, good. Oh, so you piqued your interest to know because all they still talk about is the Dark Phoenix saga, don't they? It was it's a real pivotal moment, and you must that's really important. The Days of the Future Past. That's another such a big, massive 2-issue story, but it has such an importance. Such an importance in the. That would be a Marvel event and a load of miniseries, wouldn't it? Yeah.
It would be a crossover, 12 issues, spin-off, and goodness knows what else.
Do you specifically have any memories of buying this one we're talking about today?
This one in particular? No. Okay. No, I don't have a specific memory of it. There are certain issues I remember where I bought them or when exactly, but this one in particular, no. But I do remember when I read it the first time, and although it wasn't, an epic fight against villains or anything like that, I thought, oh, this is actually different.
Yeah.
And this is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I thought. And I remember that I had that memory of it.
Yeah.
And
well, let's. I was going to leave this till later in the episode, but I think we can charge into it now because we both. I mean, I'm a massive X-Men fan. I've got a complete run of Uncanny. I still buy it now. Not always enjoy it, but I still buy it. And I'm a little bit older than you, Nando. So my formative years were Byrne. Really, it really got me. It really caught on to me, and it carried on.
Understandably so.
Yeah. But it carried on through these issues and everything. And I still would probably say they're my favourite team. Wolverine's probably one of my favourite characters still in all of comics. But I know we briefly discussed this before we pressed record, but the original X-Men team they didn't sell great towards the end. It became a reprint title. And went bi-monthly and stuff like that. But when the Uncanny came out, it didn't hit immediately, but when it did hit, it became massive. And massive seller. And then spin-off series weren't as common as they are now. And then it continues to be. I was speaking to Pete actually, and I was saying what's selling really well, and he was saying the X-Men comics fly out. So there's still in Forbidden Planet this was, and they're still selling really well. Why do you think they endure, man? Why do you think they're still 40, 50 years later, they're still a massive fan favourite?
I think when the X-Men came back, and when we had the giant size Uncanny X-Men issue number 1, which introduced this new group, this new team,
written by Len Wein instantly.
Exactly.
Claremont stands. Yeah.
Yes, and we had this sort of international lineup.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. First
of all, of heroes, different race backgrounds as well, and ethnic backgrounds as well, because then you had the Storm from Africa, and you had Thunderbird, which was a Native American.
Yeah.
And we had
Colossus himself was Russian, which was an unusual thing for us.
Yeah, and Nightcrawler being German, and so you had all this variety, and so you have this sort of appeal there, which then Cockrum loves the design of all the uniforms because he did all these designs. So that's the initial, but there's more. Is when Claremont gets into it, and I think he had a massive role in suddenly bring the X-Men to the top. That's one thing. And why is doing it so well? Because he brings the human side of these characters beside the superhero side. So they are not just a super team. They are a family.
Yeah. There's this big theory, isn't there?
Problems.
There's this big theory that TV series do well when you recreate a sense of family for the viewer.
Exactly.
And I think it counts for comics. And I think it making not just family but relatable. So Peter Parker, stuff like that.
It's a bit of going back to the origins of the modern Marvel comics.
Yeah.
When Lee and Steve Ditko did Amazing Spider-Man, and suddenly they introduced this teenager superhero that has his worries and his problems. So a teenager boy into the superhero world. Suddenly everyone, I like this.
And if you couple into that the fact that Stan and the bullpen were very intent on getting you in as part of the gang. Which is slightly different from other companies at the time, because we all had our own little phrases we'd use as Marvel fans. He'd write a column, he'd have a little cheeky. I mean, I don't know if you remember this when John Romita Jr. was Hunk of the Month. Do you remember that? In the it was all like a gang. We were in like a gang with them, And I kind of think that's where it goes. My big theory about, if you just see what you think about this one, is the reason we like the X-Men is because comic readers like us back then it was a little bit of an outsider hobby.
Oh yeah.
You know? And the X-Men are outsiders.
Yeah.
And I think in a weird way they represent us. Do you see what I mean?
No, I totally agree.
Yeah. They're almost our friend group in a way. You know, we'd all love to be in the X-Mansion, wouldn't we? We'd all love to have Wolverine as a friend and, you know, go in the danger room, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. They were the outcasts. They were the ones that they were, despite of being good and protect the society was against them in many ways, and they had to deal with the hate. And there's a lot of social commentary on it.
Yeah.
And Claremont didn't want to go into that too heavy initially. He wanted to create the family feeling first.
Yeah.
We have that social commentary and how they hate the mutants, and that increases. And we see actually from this sort of era onwards, it gets even worse. The hate against the mutants, and and the persecution, and the anti-mutant act by Senator Kelly, and all these kind of things they appear, and there is the social part of it. There is the being represented or representing the outcasts, the people
I think
who is
what they
different
did
in
is,
society, as you said that.
As an allegory
and there is the
for
family.
Yeah, I mean, as an allegory for racism, it's perfect because what Marvel have done is they've made them our friends, and then they've shown us that people are being racist against them in a way, thus showing to us how bad racism is, and we're on their side. We're automatically anti-racist,
Yes, absolutely.
It's very clever, and I'm not sure whether all of that was totally intended, but it certainly had that effect on me,
it did on me as well, and I'm pretty sure of many readers as well.
Yeah.
And that was I think, what differentiated the X-Men from the rest of the Marvel super teams, and how the magazine was read. And you have to remember, you had, you had, as we said, people from different ethnic backgrounds.
Yeah.
You had also a lot of women, and they had very important roles in the super team.
Yeah.
And here in this story, we see a Storm, and she is essentially the mother figure, although she appears just very briefly. But in the two occasions that she appears is the mother figure. Kitty Pryde, she will be the daughter,
sister, for us,
sister, the little sister. You have Wolverine, which for the first time he has this first sort of father figure role, particularly at the end of the fight, and what sort of chat he has with Colossus at the end. You had all these elements, and each of them, they have, a role in this family, and Claremont was very clever on that, I think. And as you say, maybe no it was intended like that, and it just came out like that. But goodness.
Yeah, I think once you've got those characters down, they write themselves, don't they? And that's the old phrase that people use, don't they? You guide them around like chess pieces, like action figures almost. But I think a couple of things worth mentioning around the X-Men as well is they remain popular because of the reinvention. And I don't just mean around lineups and costumes and personalities. We've seen Kitty Pryde become Catherine Pryde recently and all this sort of thing. But I think the stuff that it spread into other. So long before we had the Marvel movies, we had a very popular X-Men cartoon, card games. Then we got the movies with them in. So the X-Men could survive as their own comic company, I think. So you can just be, with a few exceptions, just be into the X-Men. You'd probably have to buy about 30 comics a month, though, because there's so many fucking series out there. But, there's that. And I think the change of lineups does occasionally help. We saw not long after this issue, did we? Maybe 2 years after this, we had Storm compete with Cyclops for the leadership.
That's right.
We have people come and go a bit from it, and even after this, story, doesn't Kitty Pryde then go off and do the Kitty Pryde and Wolverine miniseries? I think that's after this,
yes,
isn't it?
I think that's about right. Yes, that's about right. It's short after that, or there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is a great
so,
series.
yeah.
I really like that series. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of people forget about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was published in Spain a couple of years later.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't have the occasion to actually fit it in, but I've read it. I had too, and it was it was very interesting.
Yeah. Have you got any particular runs of? Have you got any other sort of particular storylines or runs of the X-Men that you've really dug, mate? You know.
I do like. I mean, all the Claremont run. Possibly, if you go into the Mutant Massacre.
Okay. Yeah.
That one I remember when I bought the first issue and how the first issue finished, and I was like, how is this going to happen? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Being daft, and they say, come on, man, it's just a comic.
Yeah.
But you're concerned, you're worried about the characters. I remember that very well. I think probably, yeah.
When did you drop off? When did you go, no, I'm not digging it anymore? Are you able to say?
I dropped off. That was probably after Age of Apocalypse.
Okay.
I would say roughly.
Yeah, that was a difficult time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I think kind of around about that time. I remember. Yeah, Age of Apocalypse, Onslaught. The round about that era.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Going back to which part of comics I like, I want to say there's a short story, 2 issues, no long after this one, with Kulan Gaff as the major villain.
Okay, yeah.
And it relates to I think it's a Marvel team up of Spider-Man and Red Sonja.
Oh, of course, which is a Byrne comic as well, isn't it?
Yes, and the whole of Manhattan or New York gets covered in this sort of magical sphere where everyone inside lives in this sort of Conan fantasy era, and outside is still normal. That story is one of my favorite ones as well.
Nice one. Yeah, I've got a real soft spot. I talked about it with Eamon a few years ago with the Wolverine mini, the Miller one.
Yeah,
I really like that. All of the Byrne, Claremont, or Austin stuff, I just loved. The Dark Phoenix saga especially. I was reading that in a mixture of Marvel UK reprints and also getting slightly newer versions of the story from the American issues that were landing in. Not all of them landed in the newsagents, so I had to go back and buy some of them at Comic Marts and stuff. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's probably the comic I've got the most versions of. I think of all the comics in my collection, trade paperbacks, essentials.
Yeah.
I'll always buy like a French version of it if I see one or whatever, that sort of thing. Yeah, that was a good one for me. Should we talk a little bit? Let's move over and talk about it because I know we're running long actually. Let's talk a little bit about the art. John Romita, aka John Romita Jr. I think he just goes by John Romita now. His real name, his long form name is John Salvatore Romita. He was born in 1956, 67 years old. Where has the time gone, Nando?
I don't know. I don't know.
He studied at the Farmingdale State College in New York. At 13, he created the Prowler, which is the Spider-Man villain, which Stan really liked the name, but they changed the costume, etc. a little bit. He began working at Marvel on covers for reprints. Then in 77, he had a 6-pager called Chaos at the Coffee Bean in an Amazing Spider-Man annual. I probably noticed him, and I'm guessing you did as well, when he was teamed up with Bob Layton on Iron Man. Was that a good time?
Yes. Yes.
Really
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that
really
there's
good.
a run of about 10, 12 comics there that I reread recently when I knew we were doing this. Still stand up, man. Still outstanding.
Yeah. Definitely.
To me, still the best Iron Man run, I think. I kind of think that. I don't know what you think about that. You got a favourite run?
No, that's possibly my favorite one as well. As I say earlier on, that's the ones that I went into. They were in the news agents at that time when I started with the Marvel comics and with the X-Men, and that was my first contact to Iron Man. So definitely,
maybe that's part of it. Yeah,
arguably the best one.
Yeah, he then did some more Spidey. He launched the Dazzler series. My next bump into him was in Marvel Superhero Contest of Champions, which I fucking loved. It was one of those comics I got on holiday. You know when your parents drive for 300 miles and you've got 2 comics in the back of the car? The first issue of that was one of them. Because we loved that. We loved that in the UK because it had Captain Britain in it, you see. So we were nuts for it. He then got on the X-Men grind, but wasn't the favourite of Claremont, the story goes. Claremont didn't immediately want him. Had to sort of be talked into it, Then he did Then he jumped about a bit, but we got Starbrand, which Dave and I talked about. Dave Robertson, your buddy, and my buddy. We talked about him. And then in my head, he kind of turned into the person we see more now. You can see a little bit in his X-Men work here, but it's hard to say. But I kind of feel like there's more of a Kirby. He allows his inner Kirby to flow out a bit more. You know, what do you think?
Are you meaning when he goes into Daredevil?
Into what? Sorry, you got a bit of noise on your mic there. What did you say, dude? Sorry.
So when he goes into when he did Daredevil with Innocenti, and then also The Man Without Fear.
Yeah, which he says is his best work. That's he says that's his best work.
So,
that one. Yeah.
There is a definitely change in the style. When he did you start to see that in Daredevil. You see definitely Man Without Fear, and he did some other comics at that time.
Thor. I think the Cable mini series, if you read that.
Yes, the Cable mini series. That's another one.
Yeah.
And you see that more a square jaw characteristic. Those fists, the proportions are more Kirby-esque.
Yeah, very much
for the characters.
And he did some Thor around, I think, around the 2000s, and that's similar again. That's that sort of idea. So but it has changed as again. And I know there's some people who doesn't like that new style. Yeah. I prefer more the style that he did in the Uncanny X-Men in this run that that we are discussing here with Claremont. Personally, I do like Man Without Fear. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah,
I really like that, and I really like that because also the inker works in his favor on the style, and I think the final product works really well.
Yeah,
and I believe it's Al Williamson, the inker,
who did a lot with him. He did some of the Starbrand stuff with him as well.
Yes, he did. He actually did some of the X-Men. If I remember correctly, the few episodes they are part of the Secret Wars.
Okay, right.
There's a few of them, 2 or 3 of them, and it's Al Williamson doing the inks.
I think worthy of note here as well is Klaus Janson as well. I like his stuff over the top. So it gives it a bit more of a scratchier feel, I kind of feel.
Yeah, it's more scratchy. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But is that too scratchy when he goes into that sort of Kirby X style? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Just try to find that fine balance of how it looks.
There's definitely a storytelling versus letting your style go a bit crazier balance somewhere, isn't there? Like when you look at 183 that we've been reading for this, there's definitive brilliant storytelling in it. But if you looked at something like, I don't know if you ever read his Image book, The Grey Area, he's kind of...
Yes, I remember that. I've read the first few issues of that, yes.
Yeah, he's almost let a bit off the leash too much there, somehow.
Yes, I didn't like that.
Yeah, and I felt that a little bit about a couple of other things. I do really like his style. It's the Wolverine he did with Mark Millar. I kind of felt he was a bit off the leash on that as well.
Not as much as the Grey Area.
Yeah, no, I agree with that totally, man. Yeah,
I would say. But yeah, with the Spider-Man, some of the stuff was alright. Some of the stuff I was not sure about this.
Yeah, of course, he did the 9/11 comic, which is I remember breaking my heart. That was great.
That's probably one of the best ones, if not the best one of that run.
And I think one of the ones he's made a lot of money out of is the Eternals with Gaiman, isn't he? The Eternals miniseries or 12-issue maxi series he did with.
Yeah, I think they sold quite a lot of that.
Yeah, it's always in a shop. Whenever I'm in a shop, it's always there. I'm not sure if that's because they've got so many left over.
Is it the same copy though?
Yeah, it might be from that terrible movie. They couldn't shift any, could they? Yeah. And then we get a lot of stuff like Kick-Ass, which I remember reading and thinking, it's sort of a bit extreme. It's kind of fun to read. He's not putting as much work into it, but I think and I hope that he's making a few quid from it, was the way I sort of sat and looked at that.
Well, they've done three limited series of Kick-Ass. They've done some spin-offs.
Yeah.
A newer one as well.
Yeah.
Movie. So I think they're doing all right.
I think it's getting rebooted as a movie series. I think they announced it in New York, didn't they, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Are you reading Big Game?
The
new Miller series?
No, I'm not actually. No, I'm not.
Okay, I won't spoil it.
That's the Pepe Larraz one.
The what? Sorry.
Pepe Larraz is doing the art.
That's the one. Yeah. So it's the big spinner. All the different.
Yeah. No, I'm not reading that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe get that in a trade, because you might a couple of moments in it you might be surprised at. But yeah.
Okay.
Then we got he did some Avengers work with Bendis, which I really liked. I remember going in the store specifically, quite excited to read that stuff. And then we had the World War Hulk. Just before that, we had the World War Hulk stuff as well. So he's definitely a big Marvel guy, isn't he? Which was a surprise to me when he moved to DC for that little period of time.
Yeah, he's done lots of things for Marvel for many years.
Yeah.
And for DC, I remember the All-Star Batman he did.
Yes. Yeah. The Superman thing he did.
I remember the Superman with Frank Miller.
Yeah.
He did as well. And when he did that, particularly with the first issue, I thought his style was softer.
Okay.
And I thought, this looks like a little bit more of the more classic John Romita Jr.
Yeah, I get it.
And because when I thought, this looks nice. And then, the first one in particular, I thought looked really nice. 2 and 3, maybe the story as well doesn't help him.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first one I thought was really nice.
Yeah, cool. I mortally embarrassed myself in front of him once. So I was with Cliff.
What happened?
Yeah, I was with Cliff and Falpy and a buddy of ours a couple of buddies of ours we met at Heroes Convention in Charlotte.
Okay.
And I think beer was flowing a bit. We were all in a good mood. So I decided to pose one of my questions about what's the worst thing you've ever done, which is always a good question to ask people when they're drinking. And I decided to open up with one of the worst things I've ever done, which I can't repeat on here. And I've said some things on here, man, before. It's that bad. And then we noticed that sitting next to us with a baseball cap on, eating his dinner at the bar and watching the baseball was John Romita Jr., who who almost flinched when I told the end line of it. And then we tried to, Cliff tried to get him to involve himself and have a drink with us. And he sort of thanked us and left.
I think that was no thanks.
I think it's probably a very wise move, to be fair. But yeah, I do like him. I like his enthusiasm still. If you follow him on social media, I'm going to say it's Instagram, but I'm not sure because I don't know. But he does like a little sort of drawing, chats about while drawing and stuff like that. I like that.
Yeah.
His recent Spider-Man stuff ain't as good as some other stuff he's done. Yeah, I'll leave it there. It's not a great series, but it's selling well, so I'm hoping he's making a few quid. But yeah. Otherwise, he's won an Inkpot Award and he won an Eisner for the Spider-Man 30 to 35 coming home story. Good. Okay, so let's talk. Go on, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. His production. I mean, he can't complain. The amount of stuff he's done. That's the thing. He works, and he works a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes he has said to critics, the people who criticize his art style say, well, the art style that comes on that day is the art style that comes on that day. That's it. That's how I draw that day. That's how it comes out. And I just have to move on. And so certainly, he works.
Yeah, I like that. He's got a work ethic. I do like that about
yes,
him.
Definitely.
Yeah, seems like a really nice guy from what I can make out of. I think I spoke to him at Kapow as well, because he came down for that, the Kapow convention that Miller ran in London. Yeah, super nice. Right, let's get on to the comic itself, and then we're going to get on to talk a little bit about you. I wanted to just quickly cover the cover, because I really like this cover. We talk a lot about covers on the Awesome Comics podcast.
Yes.
And I like a storytelling moment on a cover. And I like there to be action on a cover, because if you look at this, there's things that happen on this cover that don't happen in the comic. So, am I right? I think I'm right in saying is that we don't see the exposed Juggernaut costume in the comic.
That's correct. Yeah.
But they very wisely put it on the cover, because otherwise it would just be a big bloke with red hair, wouldn't it? You know.
Exactly. Yeah. So you immediately recognize, oh, wait a second, that's Colossus and Juggernaut, you know, punching each other.
Yeah, with in the background.
Yes.
The storytelling, the body language on this is beautiful, because it's got Nightcrawler almost wanting to jump in and help out, and Logan leaning back against the bar, taking it all in, like the old hand he is. He's seen more bar fights than anyone, isn't he? You know.
Yes. He's seen more fights than anyone. He's been in more fights than anyone. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. And I remember at the time thinking, fucking hell, you wouldn't want to get punched by those knuckles of Colossus. They look nasty. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Definitely. And Romita's been clever here. He could have done Juggernaut really, really big.
Yeah.
But it puts him in a different position, and it favors Colossus' height. Yeah. So suddenly Colossus seems to be, you know, much bigger than Juggernaut. And say, well, wait a second, you know, Colossus could actually knock him down, you think?
Yeah,
just looking at the cover, it gives him competition. So yeah, it's a great cover.
Yeah, and also it's the opposite of what happens in the comic, because Colossus doesn't really get the better of him. You know, he doesn't kill him, he doesn't maim him, but it's just like he just knocks him out, you know, kind of, and then he comes to, and yeah, I really like this cover. I think we need more storytelling, because as soon as I would see, like I was like you, buying this in newsagents, so as soon as I saw this on the shelf in a newsagent, I'd be like, oh right, this is fucking something's happening here.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And I feel, because I loved all these characters so much, I felt tense. I was actually upset when Colossus loses.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But there's no one else. I think it's a very wise choice to use Juggernaut, because obviously he's now kind of a good guy. But back then he was not super evil. He was the kind of guy who'd rob a bank, you know. But he was also the kind of guy that was unstoppable, and you knew he couldn't beat him.
You wouldn't mess with him.
Yeah.
You wouldn't mess with him. Yeah. And also the other thing is interesting on this one is you have this cover, but then the first page, and you read the title of the story, and you go,
yes, true. Yeah.
Have they mixed up the comics with the covers here?
Yeah.
You know, it's something totally different.
For those who haven't read it,
once you read the comic, everything makes sense.
Yeah. For those that haven't read it, it starts off in something that wasn't common in a lot of comics at the time. We get a long sequence of talking heads. We get a romantic breakup between a couple, where normally comics would start with a fucking bank robbery or something, or someone landing a spaceship. But this way, because I think Claremont was recognised to be someone who could carry something like that, it opens with multiple pages of talking heads and emotional content as opposed to physical content.
Yeah. And I have to say, the expressions, the faces, the posture of Colossus, of Piotr and Kitty here, it's great.
Yeah,
it's fantastic storytelling, because it's not showing very much. We can see the very first page, we see both of them sitting at the cliff, and you see, you know, sitting down. Second panel, you only see their backs.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the rest is just heads, just headshots.
Yeah.
Headshots. There's one from the distance, very far away, or from the back again.
Yeah, he really switches it up here, doesn't it? But it doesn't affect the reading experience. Yeah.
No, and you can read the conversation without reading the speech bubbles, and you know what's going on.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
So that definitely is a great job.
Yeah, it really is. I have two things about it. One, the sky's very red, isn't it?
The sky is purple. The sky's purple, man. The colorist has been smoking something, you know.
Yeah, this looks like an album cover, doesn't it?
It's colorful.
Yeah. This is a prog rock sky in an album cover. And the other thing is, who takes their younger, probably impetuous, let's see that use that as an adjective, girlfriend to the cliffs to break up with her?
Well, yeah. But it's certainly more romantic.
Yes, yeah. Now, of course, this was all I found this incredibly moving when I read it. I thought, oh god, because we'd been on that, we'd watched them grow and this sort of thing, and it didn't occur to me that there was this massive age difference. But when the actual age difference is, Piotr is 19 and Kitty
19?
is 14.
14,
which is fucking massively dodgy. But I didn't realise at the time, so I could appreciate it. Only going back now, I think, come on, Claremont, what are you doing? I know Peter's a bit stunted, isn't he? He's a bit emotionally stunted, but there's no excuse for that. There's a lot of emotionally stunted people out there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, at the time, I didn't pay attention to the age.
Yeah, I didn't realise what I'm going to say.
Yeah. Personally, I just thought, 14, 19, they were older than me as a reader, and I didn't pay attention to that. And then I thought, well, fine, Yeah. And anyway, Kitty was always portrayed in a way, the way she speaks and thinks. She's always more mature than her age.
Yeah.
Ways. Even from the very beginning.
And she'd done a lot of growing, hadn't she? Since since Christmas episode issue where there was like an alien running about in the campus and stuff like that. Yeah. So she's gone through a lot. Yeah,
she's gone through a lot actually. Yeah. There's a lot of life experience for a 14-year-old, and then you have Peter that he is a shy, introspective
farmer, isn't he? Essentially,
so that kind of brings them emotionally together, and more of that closer age. But just looking at the numbers, 14 and 19, you go, if you publish this nowadays, that would be controversial.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah. It's interesting. The next page I wanted to draw to your attention is, I think it's page 9, which opens with. It can't be the most, because we've had a competition on this in the past, me and the Don. But there's more words in the top panel with Storm speaking than there are in some comics these days, or thinking rather. Yeah.
That's the one that Storm. Yeah, there's a lot of that there.
Yeah. And then what I really like about this page is they don't do this enough, and I actually think the movie Hugh Jackman Wolverine characters is one of the reasons. But that for me, Logan is a runt. Logan is
little.
He would never have had a chance with Jean because Cyclops was good looking, and he's this outsider runt, and the height difference between him and Peter there is great. I really like that. I think that works.
Yes.
But he's still, in old prison terms, he's still the daddy of the situation.
Yes,
he's telling him what to do, and at that point, he was going to kick his ass, wasn't he, for doing it? Teach him a lesson. Yeah.
Well, he teaches us a lesson, but no physically.
Yeah.
He does in a different way, and I think that goes deep. The result goes much deeper.
Yeah.
And yeah. So keep going with that.
Yeah.
So
cool.
we go, because then suddenly you go the third one in the party, which is Nightcrawler, because he goes, hey, don't go without me. I want to come too. I'm going to the pub too.
So perfectly in personality. That's his personality for me as well at the time.
Yes.
He's a tormented, tragic character, but he has that almost beast-like bounce about him at some times, and that little entrance into the group to go to the pub, I thought was perfect. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
So they go to Monaghan's, and then they sit in the corner. All two of them wearing hats. That cowboy hat of Wolverine's ain't aged well, is it? I've got to tell you,
it's fantastic. I think it's great.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he basically gets him drunk, doesn't he?
Pretty much. They just sit down and start to drink beer and whiskey or whatever they were drinking, and just getting drunk, and they start to talk, Yeah. And Nightcrawler, wants to kind of sees what's going to happen in a way, and Wolverine says, "Don't intervene. Leave it in with me. Just leave it with me," sort of thing. And there's an interesting panel. Where we see the bar, and we see this big, massive guy has his left arm on the bar. He has a girl around his right arm. And, it's just there in the background in this panel. and then we see Wolverine talking,
Yeah.
saying you owe Kitty an apology. And,
It's nicely telegraphed, isn't it? That it's nice. They put him there without overstating the matter,
yes.
and then he appears later. I'll tell you what I really like about Juggernaut in this is, and he does this a lot later, actually, I think Man Without Fear, he does this, is that solid black polo neck he's got on. Works so beautifully in the art.
The massive hand that is bigger than his head, and it's on like half of the width of the bar,
Yeah.
It's gigantic. And then they have the conversation, and Wolverine saying Colossus, you owe Kitty an apology, and Colossus say, hey, that's how I feel. I fell in love with Sajin, the Secret World planet, and my feelings for Kitty have changed and all that, and then and they start to go. Are you afraid? Are you sure you're not afraid? What you're pretending here and things like that. There's a conversation, there's a common throw, but in the end, it's all part of the game that Wolverine is playing here.
Yeah.
And then the following page, Wolverine is having a sip of beer, and he kind of turns around and he said, that smell. I recognize that smell.
Yeah.
And he spots Juggernaut.
Yeah, the transition into it being Juggernaut is done in four. It's a single image that's split up into 4 horizontal panels, and it indicates how Logan's senses are working to pinpoint this character, and I think it really works. That I really like the way he's done that.
Yeah, it's really good work there, because it goes sort of blurry and the shadows, smoky atmosphere. Keep going with that. The colorist has that blues and just blue colors.
Yeah,
and then suddenly, as we approach into the third panel, there's more definition. There's a wee bit more of color. Bang.
Yeah.
We go a massive red-haired guy with a black jumper, massive hands.
I'm going to question his fashion sense there, Nando. He's got ginger. Well, no, he's not even ginger hair. It's just bright red hair. He's got a black polo neck. He's got brown chinos. Who wears brown chinos? And he's got black boots on, like cowboy boots,
Tony,
Cuban heels.
You want to go? You want to go and tell him in the face? Be my guess.
Yeah.
I want. He can wear whatever he wants.
Yeah, I dare say he has trouble buying trousers, but but yeah, so that's lovely. And then the fight, so it sort of explodes into a fight. And I really like the way that he does the fight. It's not overly choreographed. Half of it is done in people watching. In fact, he uses. Romita and Claremont use a lot of not only Wolverine and Nightcrawler watching, but they use the crowd watching as well, which I really like.
Yeah. I like that how it's done. How Romita combines different, let's say, points of view, cameras, just to use the cinematographic jargon here. And we have to say that the fight was not part of the plan on Wolverine's Night Out.
Yeah,
he didn't want to have that fight, but when the fight happens, then he decided, okay, let's leave it like that. Nightcrawler wants to intervene.
The bottom of page 16 is. I'm going to hazard a guess and say that some of them are from the bullpen. Some of those faces.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. I think that it's probably more work of Dan Green there doing the ink.
Yes, it does. It seems looser, doesn't it?
It's very Dan Green, in my opinion. More than Romita.
Like Dan Green's done in that. So for those that don't see, there's an image of the panel with a lot of people who I'm going to say are almost like fill-ins. I'm guessing that a couple of them are friends of people or people in the bullpen. And then on the right, you've got the 2 characters that are clearly drawn more by Romita. I'm going to say, yeah. No, it's a lovely little panel. It almost looks a bit Mad Magazine on the left to me.
A bit,
maybe a bit crazy or something.
Very different expressions in the faces. Smiling, sort of drunk, angry, surprised. So you go different. There's different expressions, but I would say that's more Dan Green's work there.
Yeah. So the fight accelerates. Slowly, more and more, the bar gets destroyed, and the actual bar gets destroyed because Juggernaut picks it up like a tree trunk and drops it on Colossus.
Yes.
And they both give it a good go, and it finally ends with just a mano to mano punching session, which Colossus loses.
Yes.
And then the building collapses on him.
Yeah, so. I mean, essentially, Juggernaut decides to rip one of the walls that sustains the building and just throw it down on Colossus.
Yeah.
And and that's pretty much.
Yeah. And then we get that last moment, don't we? We get the whole where he gives him some money. He says, "Look," and we get the moment about tell the kid from me he did himself proud. He's got guts and heart, and he throws a mean right across. And from that moment, I think I really like Juggernaut now. Genuinely, Juggernaut is one of my favourite characters. I know, spoilers, they killed him in that recent issue at the X Gala, or we thought he was. No, don't worry. We thought he was dead, and then 2 issues later, he comes back in an issue and he's tied up somewhere. But yeah, he's been through a lot of stuff. Wasn't he shagging She-Hulk at one point and all sorts of things going on, weren't there? But I kind of like him as a character. Yeah,
I like him in this episode. I think and this episode was, I think, the first time that I realized that Juggernaut, there was a code of honor.
Yeah, he could be Wolverine, couldn't he? He's akin to him.
Because you want some action, and I said no, and I said okay, we leave it like that. There, the boy may be proud, give us some money, I'll pay the damages.
Yeah,
I'll see you around, sort of thing. And then Wolverine doesn't intervene, Juggernaut doesn't intervene. Fair enough. So there's a code of honor there, and I like that when that happened. And I thought, well, it's not that evil as you were saying.
Yeah, They're likable rogues, aren't they? That's which Marvel often does so well. A lot of Spidey villains are like that, second tier villains and stuff like that. You kind of like them, but they're like Sandman will rob a bank, but he ain't all bad. It's a bit like that, isn't it? Sometimes, yeah. I think they've sort of made Juggernaut. It's rather embarrassing in the new X Gala thing because he's desperate to be in the X-Men, and this ain't the same person. Which is a shame. But there you go. That's Marvel for you these days. Good, but it's a good choice, man. I really enjoyed reading that one. It brought back the nostalgia for me. It got I for a year I wrote down everything I read and gave it a 1 to 10 out of 10, and this got a 10.
It's a really, really good one issue.
Yeah.
And we are forgetting to mention the very end when Colossus goes. He's angry.
Yeah.
With Wolverine. You didn't help me in this. Just let me with Juggernaut.
Yeah.
And then Wolverine goes like, yeah, it's gone. You lose the fight, and Colossus goes, you leave me alone. And they say, we are the X-Men. We are supposed to help each other. And Wolverine goes, well, that's the idea. That's the theory,
Yeah.
You betray it. And they say, oh, right, okay. So we need to be together, the tough times, and the difficult times, yes, and we need to help each other, yeah. And so whatever is the price that we have to pay, we have to sacrifice, our lives, for the others. Yes. How Kitty did for you.
Yeah, so he's done him, isn't he? Yeah.
And you don't see Wolverine saying that. You just see that Colossus, saying yes, and that little bitch about like Kitty did for you, and it says kind of, well, she was 14, and she saved you, she saved your life. She was going to marry Caliban.
She's been through all sorts of things to help him.
To save you. There was lots of things going on. He did lots, and essentially, and Colossus broke her heart, and Colossus didn't realize of the other side, and how young Kitty is in a certain way emotionally as well. Yeah. So it was a good lesson.
Wolverine's always been protective, and this is almost like the earlier days of it. But he's always been very protective of Kitty, isn't he? Even up till now, they've got this sort of special relationship, which is nice. I like it. Yeah.
And that relationship comes from the limited series as well that you mentioned earlier on.
Yeah, it does.
That is really important. And that relationship with Kitty is really important in the following years in the X-Men and all the spin-offs.
Yeah.
And then to the point that they need to find another Kitty Pryde, and that's when they get Jubilee.
Yeah.
Which essentially fills up that gap of that sort of sidekick for Wolverine.
Yeah.
And the Wolverine is the mentor, the protective sort of
father. I agree, man. Yeah, that's where it all started going wrong.
Yes. It kind of went downhill from there.
It really did, didn't it? Yeah, I know it did. Yeah, I agree, man. But yeah, you're right. And I think I will often think of the Wolverine miniseries as him discovering himself, and the Wolverine Kitty series of him helping her discover herself, which is quite an interesting sort of concept. Yeah, good stuff, man. So you don't think you'll dip back into the new issues or anything like that? Do you ever have a little look in? Are you on the Marvel app or anything like that? Are you, Nando? Or
no, I don't. I prefer physical. To be honest, I do have some digital, but I enjoy more physical. And I have to say that in my recent trip to Menorca, I brought this comic and another 100 issues of the X-Men. So I'm just rereading them.
Right, you brought them back from your parents' house or something, you mean?
Oh, yeah, I bought like tons of them. My suitcase was practically full, nearly 20 kilos of comics.
I have done that before, brother. I've had to throw my...
They had to stop me in the airport. There'll be some funny looks. And I say, all right, so can you open the suitcase? I say, yeah, what's this?
I've thrown away a wash kit in order to get comics back in my bag. Yeah.
Well, yeah, priorities first.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. Good. So let's talk a little bit about you, Mr. Pons. So you're still busy recording up there. You've had 2 issues of your comic out so far, haven't you? And I understand you're sort of slowly working on the next one. Yeah. We
are working on the 3rd one. We are accumulating quite a lot of material just now. We are finalizing a few bits and pieces. We have a quite good idea for the cover that we need to work on. It's going to be a black and white issue.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice.
I'm going to leave it like that. I don't want to say anymore, but I'm going to leave it like that. And we are not rushing. We want to make sure that we like this sort of relaxed way of doing it.
Yeah.
Mike is a machine. He's bringing pages and pages of comics. David has done tons of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Too. And I've done few pages, something different again from what I did last time. So I'm just doing different things. We're having fun. I think pretty soon we'll kind of start to wrap it up and just get it there.
Yeah. There's no rush, man. We do it for fun, don't we? Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, well, that's how I see it. We do it because we like to do it. We enjoy doing it. So that's we need to enjoy the ride.
Yeah, definitely. And what else can we expect from you? Are you doing comics with anyone else or anything like that? Have you appeared on any other podcasts, or what have you got coming up?
Well, I'm appearing with you here today.
Very happy to have you, my friend. Yeah,
I'm very happy to come back whenever you need me.
That was
want me.
Always, mate. That's one of my main aims of when I came up north of the border to see you guys, was to badger you into coming in and doing one. Yeah, doing the father one. But that was a fun one. We did a Mad Magazine one. So for those that haven't listened, go and listen to that Comic Smell. But we all sort of tend to sit around, and Dave ate some white pudding, which he told me all about. I'd never seen that before.
White pudding. Yes, he still has that. He loves it, the white pudding. Yeah, he
does.
Loves that.
It does seem to. Yeah, and then we all sort of swapped comics and had a chat, and it was a lovely evening. Really nice.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah, good stuff, man. And what else are you reading that you're enjoying at the moment? Anything else?
I've read very, very recently. This is something modern.
Yeah.
Nightwing by Tom Taylor and
Bruno Redondo.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah.
Because I've read a few things that it was quite interesting from the stuff that DC is publishing just now. Probably the best series. A lot of people were saying that.
Yeah. From a visual point of view, I definitely think it is.
From a visual point of view, it's fantastic. Bruno Redondo's art is great, and that's another Spanish artist who's doing well. I've read. I got the first trade. Actually, the first 2 trades. So the second one is kind of like a crossover thing.
Right.
I've read that and I've enjoyed that very much. So
he plays a lot about with there's recently he's done that POV version, hasn't he, where everything is from the view of someone.
Yeah.
Which is quite an interesting style. So they're really playing about with format and style in that, which I think is good.
Yeah, I like that. I was experimenting a little bit, and okay, some people might call it a gimmick, but it makes it coming entertaining.
Yeah.
It makes entertaining, and that's what it's about. It's about
When have comics not used gimmicks to sell them? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about entertainment. It's about to have time that you can disconnect from your worries or whatever you have in your life. Sit down, enjoy the comic, and read it, and get absorbed by it. And that's the magic of comic books,
Yeah, man.
And that's what you should be enjoying.
Yeah.
And should chase and look for.
Well, we're lifers, man, aren't we? We're in this for life. So
definitely,
there's so many to discover. Good. So right, social media wise, if you do it, where can we find you, Nando?
It'll be through that comic smell.
Okay.
Just pass the information there, and Tom, he's the social media boss. He'll pass the questions or comments to me. He always does.
Right. Cool. Nice one. That's brilliant, mate. Thanks for that. And yeah, anything. Yeah, if you've got another one, we can have a chat afterwards. Always welcome to come back on, Nando. Yes, that's lovely, mate. Cool.
Thank you for having me. I had a really good time.
Good. Thanks, mate.
Okay. Thank you. Cheers.